On to Apple. Finally, without question, they own the rights to the iPad name, at least in China. Chinese company Proview said iPad was their name. That set off a 2-year legal battle. Mark New is live from Mountain View, California. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Phil. The Guangdong High People's Court announced the two parties have reached a settlement. $60 million. That's the price Apple will pay Proview for ownership of the iPad trademark. Now, Taiwan-based Proview Electronics sold Apple the rights to the iPad name in many countries, but Apple later discovered that the deal did not include the rights owned by a Proview branch in Shenzhen, which originally demanded $800 million to transfer the rights. Apple initially offered $16 million, but Proview held out for $400 million. But as Proview faces bankruptcy, a company lawyer there said it was feeling the pressure of its debts and therefore decided to settle on $60 million. For Apple, it's also a costly lesson.
One of the problems in dealing in a foreign country is really understanding the culture and the laws, not as they're written, but as they're interpreted in that country. And clearly, Apple, being a U.S. company, had a great deal of trouble understanding how things played out in China. And that's not unusual. The Chinese companies have had a great deal of difficulty figuring out how things play out in the United States as well. It's the cross-cultural barriers to business are pretty pronounced.
This now appears to clear the way for Apple to release its new iPad in China, a product launch that many believe was held up because of this particular lawsuit. Phil.
Hey, Mark, you speak with a lot of experts down there in Silicon Valley, and this is a big deal, not just for industries in the United States, but especially for the tech industry where intellectual property rights is such a big deal. What's the reaction from the experts that you're talking to there on the ground?
Well, some legal analysts have been arguing that this sets a dangerous precedent in the fact that perhaps anybody can just go after a big company that has deep pockets. But on the other hand, this happens quite frequently in Silicon Valley, so it's kind of par for the course. It's interesting to also take a look at some of the microblogging sites in China where people have surprisingly called Proview a thug. Many people have, saying that it's essentially extorting money from Apple. But whether you agree with that or not, this has certainly brought the whole issue of intellectual property rights back into the limelight. Bill.
Does this do it for Apple, or are there other legal issues they still have to contend with going forward here?
They're still doing some other battles with other companies, but in this case, you can kind of make an argument whether they won or lost. But with regard to a case going on against Samsung, it's clear that they are winning. Last week, a U.S. court issued a preliminary injunction against Samsung's Galaxy Nexus smartphone. Apple is accusing it of infringing on a patent over its iPhone 4S. The injunction could block the sale and import of the Galaxy Nexus smartphone into the United States. Samsung has just appealed that filed a motion to appeal against that decision. Phil.
Mark, thank you for that update, joining us live from California.